Hello, welcome. Welcome, everybody. As everyone is joining, if you want to, you're welcome to rename your little Zoom square with your name and pronouns and where you are calling in from. You can also use the chat to introduce yourself, just like, hi, I'm Anna. I'm calling in from White River Junction today, and we'll get started in a couple of minutes.
What's happening?
Anna, I believe you might be muted.
Thank you. I wasn't saying anything brand new. I was just saying welcome again and to put your name in the chat if you want to introduce yourself and say where you're calling in from. Um, and saying we'll just let, I think maybe wait 1 or 2 more minutes to let more folks join, and then we'll get going. Yeah, I've lost track of Magali on my screen. So Magali, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started unless I hear or see a different instruction from you.
Start.
Okay, thanks. Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday, especially to those who have attended the last couple of days of VECAN webinars. I know it's been a loaded, dense couple of days. As people join, I want to keep inviting folks to rename their Zoom head with your preferred name, pronouns, and town or location. And if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, we have a lot of people today, so that'll probably be a good side place to communicate, since we won't be able to have a lot of active back and forth until we get into our breakout rooms. Welcome. I am Anna Gunther. I work for Vital Communities, a nonprofit down in the Upper Valley region of Vermont, New Hampshire. We're a VECAN partner, and I am happy to say that a lot of my work involves working with town energy committees in our regions and various projects. So happy to see some familiar faces. Welcome. Today, I think you know what you're joining. It's a Vermont Peer-to-Peer Town Energy Committee Roundtable. We've done this before. We are at this moment a statewide community gathering committed to a just and inclusive energy future for Vermont. But I know that the other 364 days a year, you all work with dedication and fervor in your hyper local organizing ecosystem, whether you're working on municipal building upgrades or collaborating with local towns on window dressers, or trying to sort of open up climate change discourse through other town projects like community gardens and housing and transportation. There's a lot of diverse entry points into this conversation. So today we're featuring 3 presenters so that we don't take up your whole afternoon, but I want to acknowledge that pretty much everyone in this room could probably be giving a presentation about this, about the last year of your town energy committee work, and that the persistent dedication and work of the people on this call is not lost on those of us who are lucky enough to work supporting you. This year in the survey responses, I think we continued to hear pretty common challenges and successes. The successes continue to lean on collaboration across sectors, across towns, and the challenges continue to be really lack of volunteer capacity, whether that's number, or sort of the amount of time and dedication that your volunteers can give you. Hopefully the 3 different groups that we're going to hear from today is going to give you a sort of diverse range. Are you able to hear me? Okay, I'll try and speak up a little. I just got a message I was speaking too softly, and I'm sorry about that. So specifically, we're going to hear from Jim from the Brandon Energy Committee, from Jesse and the Hartford Energy Commission, and Ginevra from Sustainable Woodstock. So we're going to hear strategies from the Brandon Energy Committee about how they keep collaboration and engagement high across their core volunteer group and auxiliary volunteer groups, as well as looking at Hartford and Sustainable Woodstock as kind of a compare and contrast of 2 different organizing landscapes that I think are really interesting because they're so physically close to each other, but are 2 examples of different groups with different priorities, different resources, different communities, and what those communities kind of expect from the organizers. A note on inclusion. We know our solutions need to reflect the diversity of our state, and we also know that they often do not. We know that lip service to including everyone's voice or having everyone at the table is coming to be insufficient in this work as a strategy, and that we may instead need to listen intentionally and especially to the voices of our neighbors who are routinely and often by design systemically excluded from the types of solutions that we're used to floating and supporting with each other. No town or community should be left out, overlooked, or excluded because of their location, their resources, or their identities. And I think I am learning how to think more critically about how class dynamics and power dynamics affect what work we choose to do as organizers and who is able to participate in and benefit from those choices. So just some housekeeping and structural notes of how the day will go. We're going to have 3 back-to-back presentations, 10 to 15 minutes each. And then we will, after the 3 presentations, break into 3 breakout rooms, each featuring a presenter for a more personalized Q&A. So when we get to that portion of the day, you will choose the breakout room of the presenter that you're most interested in following up and asking more questions to. What else? We should have closed captions enabled. So if you have trouble hearing, you can press the CC button on the bottom of your Zoom toolbar to get that. Magali is our VECAN techno wizard today. So if you are having any trouble navigating anything with Zoom, and she's waving at you now, thank you, Magali, you can direct message her in the Zoom chat and she can help you. That also is applicable when we get into breakout rooms. If you get into a breakout room and you decide you want to be in a different one, you can message her and she can help you switch over to a different room. I also want to invite my colleagues Erica Hiller and Alana Redden to just wave at you. They will be facilitators in each of the breakout rooms and will just help keep the question and answer period flowing and then report back to the group at the end. So now I think I'm going to move into introducing Jim, our first presenter. I just met Jim, but I'm happy to consider him a new friend. For those of you from other areas of Vermont, Brandon, Vermont is located kind of in between Rutland and Middlebury. I have to admit, I had to look it up on a map myself. As you'll hear, Jim is fortunate to be leading a very active group of both committee member volunteers and sort of auxiliary support volunteers. I think most interesting is Jim's highly strategic approach to the division of labor and identifying sort of activating issues and projects, prioritizing creating good energy and following good energy of passionate volunteers, and seeing how that has sort of laid a path for success for them, which I think you'll hear about in the number of projects that Brandon has successfully pulled off in this last year. I will also note that the full Brandon Energy Committee annual report, as well as other presenter slides, will be part of the resources that we get to you after this. So Jim won't be able to touch on everything that Brandon has done. He's just going to give us some highlights. But if you are interested in that more comprehensive list, that'll be part of what gets sent out to you after this webinar. So I want to invite Jim to unmute and speak. I'm just trying to find you on my screen. You ready, Jim? I think he's unmuting himself. We're struggling to. Magali, is it possible that the
Oh,
there
can you hear
go.
me now?
Yes, I can. Hello, Jim.
I can barely hear you, but I'll talk. All right.
We're ready for you.
So this month, our energy committee met. We came up with a new mantra called "Think globally, act locally, stress internally," because well, we actually had a session, a segment of our meeting devoted to jokes about climate change, because it was really, and that was really a culmination of our working together as a team to be collaborative and congenial, and it was quite a special part of our session, actually. There were some really great shares that came out right as a result of that. So just a little history of the Energy Committee. We started in 2017 when the board set the select board of the town set up this committee to support the town in reaching the state energy goals. And the first 3 years of the group, or 2.5 years, they focused on getting a energy plan in place. We were the first town in Rutland County to get that established. COVID was a quiet period, and recent 2.5 years have been very productive. We've kind of restarted our meetings July of 21 when I joined as chair. We initially focused on our energy on defining goals we could achieve. We avoided discussing concepts and avoided discussing gripes about the way things were. And our theme was, what could we accomplish? What did we want to accomplish? In fact, we had 3 basic principles we worked with. One is to be clear about our purpose. 2, to focus on getting stuff done. And 3, to build a camaraderie and inclusive group in getting this done. We worked with brainstorming our goals for several months. We converted our goals to SMART goals. You may be familiar. They are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. Then we decided who would be responsible for seeing each of these goals got achieved. During our monthly meetings, we'd review our progress on these goals. This process, like I say, took several months to establish. It was both a productive and challenging undertaking, especially as some of the members that were in the group already were more interested in discussing topics and not so focused on getting things done. It was not that we spent no time on discussing concepts, but we had a specific section of our meeting devoted to reflections on issues that we announced in the prior meeting. So some key successes we met in the first year is we were able to attract Solar Fest to make Brandon our permanent home. So a team of us went out and found 8 potential properties that Solar Fest could occupy. They eventually ended up in a location that was donated 74 acres to them. And we've been supporting their festivals and collaborating with them on a number of projects in town. They've been a great team player in that regard. So we created a volunteer group to support our Button Up Brandon events in the fall of 2 years last year. We had one event for homeowners, one event for landlords, and another event for renters. We had presenters on weatherization. We had Heat Squad present their energy audits. We had Efficiency Vermont present. We had Brock, which is our local, our regional economic opportunity agency. We presented on weatherization programs for income qualified households. We had 3E Thermal talk to the landlords about their programs. And then we also had a tax presentation for landlords. We got in collaboration with Solar Fest, we got a $3,600 grant that allowed us to provide free weatherization materials of about $50 a piece, and had about 80 people attend to these events, which is about 2% of our population, and had over 20 sign up for Heat Squad energy audits. We helped Brandon put on its first annual Davenport Electric Fest. This festival celebrates Thomas Davenport. He was a Brandon resident who was the first inventor to get patents granted by the United States and Britain for his electric motor. He was an amazing inventor, developed many, many projects, electric pianos, electric trains, and was amazingly impoverished and ahead of his time. But as a result of these activities, we built quite a volunteer base. So we expanded our committee members from 5 to 7, and we have about a dozen other volunteers that help out here and there on different projects. Initially, we decided to try setting the committee members and the volunteers up into subcommittees. So we had a conservation group, a generation group, and a transportation group. And each committee had some energy committee members as well as volunteers. It worked very well for the conservation group. The other groups weren't so focused because the leadership was a little not quite as focused as would have helped in terms of defining goals and getting things done. So this year, we moved to just asking. But what we found out, though, along the way, is that people really thrive on working together as a team. So whenever we came up with a goal, we tried to develop a team to work on that goal with a leader that would have some passion for getting the job done. And this has worked particularly well. So we've had a woman who wanted to help put together an energy library. So we ended up using some grant money to get an energy library established that will be giving to the town library, which is in transition right now. So we got, I don't know, 80 books on energy related topics that we've been announcing to the town. We've gotten another fellow in town, along with one of our energy committee members, thought it would be a great idea to upgrade our bike racks so they're more conspicuous. We got them all painted a bright green with a sign on them saying branding bikes, and we bought 5 new bike racks so that we have a bit of a brand of Brandon biking, and we'll be and the same group now wants to go on and do a bike rejuvenation project where we ask people to come with their broken down bikes to fix them up. We'll teach them how to fix them up. We'll take bikes that people don't want anymore and give them to people and so forth. So we have a lot of it. What we've done is try to foster a lot of whenever somebody has an interest, let's provide some support for you to get the job done, and provide some labor as well as vigor for getting things done. We also set up an overarching committee called our education group, and we meet a half an hour before each of our monthly energy committee meetings. This group that we've initially brought in speakers from Efficiency Vermont, from Heat Squad, from all sorts of different sources to train us on what was out there and going on that we could support. And we also had some other town energy committee people come to share with us. And now we're turning that focus to how we can educate the town more effectively. And there's a bunch of things in process in that regard that I don't go into detail. So we have also worked to collaborate with other committees. The town of Goshen has a one-person committee, and that committee is he's been working with us constantly to help. He's gotten grants out of our support. He's helped support bringing people to our events and so forth. So after the first year, I'm getting a little lost here. Yeah, and then this past year we were especially productive. If you look at the annual report, I think I've listed about 15 projects. There's another one that I just remembered that we recently visited the town sewer facilities and the town garage as a group, and came up with ideas for minor things we could do to help save energy. Like they had windows that needed to be insulated, and they needed to turn their thermostat down at night. Things like these are simple things, but and we're doing a more in-depth report for that to the select board to ask them to do some more aggressive steps to weatherize those areas. These are areas that won't be under the MERP grant that we're working with. So another key of our success has been that while we started out with a select board, there was 3 members who were somewhere between mildly and aggressively or staunchly unsupportive out of 5, and we had 1 strong supporter and 1 leaning in our direction. And we had a town manager who could be quite obstructive. And what we did is we worked to try to get them to say, well, yeah, that's okay, let's try this, or let's do the weatherization program. And what we did is we said, great, and we just did it with the greatest enthusiasm and energy we could. We really tried to get some of the key people in town to be supportive of us. And in fact, one of the things that came as a result is we were able to get
okay, I'm in a training right now. Could you give me a call back at 1:30?
Oops. Okay. So and we got some key people to get onto the select board. So we now have 3 strongly supportive members, 1 mildly oppositional and 1 strongly oppositional. But that's been a big help with our progress this year. So and there's highlights, like I say, about a whole bunch of things we did that you can look up online or on the list that Anna will provide. I wanted to touch on some lowlights and challenges. We have there's a lot that I've been carrying that we're trying to find ways to spread the load on with other members. We're looking to keep the volunteers engaged. Of the 12, there's 2 or 3 that are very active. There's 2 or 3 that jump in here and there, and some of them are kind of fading. We don't have enough time to focus on grants to support our work. There's a lot out there. We've tapped a number of things that have been helpful, but there's a lot more. And getting a good email list for all the households in town is another big hurdle. Finding meaningful data regarding where we are with CO2 emissions, and weatherization in our town, which is hard to figure out how much progress we're making if we don't know where we're starting. And finally, getting individuals in town inspired to take action is our biggest striving here. So to recap, we worked with 3 basic principles: be clear about our purpose, focus on getting stuff done, building camaraderie and getting things done, and really 2 more: lots and lots of gratitude and lots of enthusiasm. That is what I have to offer.
Thank you. Awesome, Jim. Thank you, Jim. And thank you everyone who has already started to put questions in the chat. We will save those aside for our breakout room with Jim later. I'm sorry, I forgot to say that up front. As somebody who often has a thought and loses a thought within the same breath, I'm very sympathetic to getting the question out while it's on the top of your head. So even though we won't be answering the questions immediately, please feel free to put them in the chat as they occur to you, and we'll come back to them. So thank you again, Jim. I know that people are very interested in what was termed your special sauce in terms of how you can get and keep that many people engaged. Next, I'm going to invite Jesse to speak. Jesse Pollard is the chair of the Hartford Energy Commission. As a White River Junction resident, he is my local town energy commission, so I get to see a little bit of an inside look there. I think they've got a great reinvigoration of the group with a slightly younger median age, or let's say a more diverse age across the board, and a group that leans heavily on collaboration, whether with other town energy committees in Vermont or, because of where we are, right across the river in New Hampshire, with business partnerships or with educational groups and nonprofits. I think Jesse's gonna talk to us a lot about collaboration, so take it away.
All right. I'm going to figure out how to share my screen here, so bear with me. I think I just found it. Can everybody hear me? Excellent. Ooh, I don't know how to hide all that. Well, I'll just continue. All right, forgive me. You know, you'd be thinking after 3 years of, for the most part, remote work, we know exactly what we're doing when it comes to technology, but that's not the case yet. I have a lot to say. I'll try and condense in a very short amount of time, but I'd be remiss to not first acknowledge we're here. It's a small community trying to talk about climate action. And oftentimes, I'm sure you found, we find ourselves not just talking about carbon emissions, but the climate is at the nexus of all these other problems that we're trying to work with as a state and as a society. So housing crisis, opioid epidemic, race and gender disparities, immigration, all of those tie into climate change. And only focusing on carbon emissions it's missing half the story. So I'm privileged to be working with Hartford Energy Commission. I believe it was the first energy commission founded in 2007 in the state of Vermont. Many of you likely don't know me, but you know the people I work with. You know Dana Clausen, our town staff and environmental and sustainability coordinator. We're privileged to have town staff dedicated to supporting, implementing our climate action goals. Of course, you've met Molly Dunn, prior chair. I believe she was in my role this time last year, speaking with you all. And even over the last couple months, Esme Cole, our state rep, is vice chair of the Energy Commission. Laura Simon, Sarah Kelly, Lynn Bohai, one of the original founders of the Energy Commission. I like to say they put the energy in the Energy Commission. Now, as kind of you heard from Jim, energy commissions by themselves don't have a whole lot of agency when it comes to decision making. I often view us almost as an internal consultant to the select board. Each individual commissioner is assigned by the select board and sits on the Energy Commission. I am chair because my Energy Commission voted me as such, not that the select board nominated me. For any of you who don't have energy commissions yet, or you're not sure what direction to take, when it comes to local engagement and advocacy, how to give that structure. I think between Jim and I and Ginevra, you might get an idea of what some of the linchpins or pinch points of each approach looks like. Now, as Anna mentioned earlier in the call, volunteer bandwidth is a problem. So the Hartford Energy Commission, we rely on collaborations with other towns. I see several familiar names on here from Norwich, Stratford, Woodstock, even across the river in Lebanon. I likely have weekly or biweekly meetings with folks from Lebanon. I think the most important notes to hit are the ones right here. I'm going to walk through, get rid of that. Process, what this looks like. Collaboration. If you're not working with these partners that we've worked with before, they're eager to support. If you're not already, reach out. And then also, remiss to again mention that Hartford has been at this for several years. If I'm going to go out on a limb and say most towns in Vermont probably have very similar carbon emission footprints, right? We implemented a carbon action plan, kind of going on the next slide here. Climate action plan, I'm sorry, in 2019, 2021, and then that passed by a select board resolution, and then followed by a ballot measure, committing municipal operations to be carbon neutral by 2027. That's coming up fast. So a lot of our time is dedicated to addressing those more urgent fires that need to be put out with municipal operations, making weatherizing, electrifying those buildings, and addressing things like transportation and heating in particular. Now, going back to the governance section, Hartford is privileged to have several different committees all thinking about this with the climate action plan in mind. We have a climate action steering committee on top of the Energy Commission that works to connect all of the different commissions and initiatives back to the climate action plan. So we are tracking all the progress that's been done and we plan on doing. We have a dedicated climate fund. I think that's a rare thing, along with dedicated staff. One linchpin that we, or rather constraint that we do run into, like many of you, we don't have a grant writer. So we try and find ways to hop on with other grant initiatives, maybe in Lebanon or maybe in other parts of the state, that can kind of enable our success as we try and work through these problems. Kind of going forward, I know carbon accounting in a sense is something that a lot of people, us too, struggle with, but I think it is important to establish a baseline before figuring out what to prioritize and what not to. So I wanted to share, this is a collaboration with the UNH Carbon Clinic earlier this year, late last year, as we try to figure out exactly where we were starting from and where we needed to be prioritizing our time. So looking at this figure, the purchased electricity from the grid, many of you might be surprised that this is so high. We're in the Green Mountain Power footprint. It's supposed to be 100% renewable. This was an assumption that UNH made, that our total footprint should be a function of the grid itself rather than what Green Mountain Power sources. And I think there's a very long conversation about that I'm not going to get into here, but we include it for reference. And then wastewater carbon emissions. Wastewater breaking down, there's methane, there's carbon. Oftentimes, those are not accounted for in statewide, scientific, or global carbon counting. I think it's good for us to have while we are kind of figuring out how to move forward. And then the other component that this doesn't take into account would be town-owned forests, right? What about carbon capture? What about carbon sequestration? We have town-owned land that are covered with trees. We need to find a way to bring that into the conversation as 2027 and 2030 approach. If we're going to be carbon neutral, that implies some element of carbon capture as well. Moving forward, the two main things that you're going to hear me hit on for the next 10 minutes or so are transportation and heating. There's a lot of political excitement around electrification and solar and renewable resources. At the end of the day, taking a look at what our real carbon footprint is, it comes down to transportation and heating. So that is where a lot of our attention goes. Kind of just starting on the whole collaboration side of things, again, neighboring towns, I consistently reference slide decks I see from Stratford and Woodstock, just to name two, just refreshing myself on the tax incentives available to homeowners, renters. I worry that there are so many people like us, we're on different sides of the state, we're doing the same homework over and over again. What are the IRA incentives available to us? What about anything left over from ARPA or the infrastructure law? I would encourage you to lean on your fellow neighbors and towns and energy commissions, even your regional planning commissions. We are within Two Rivers Ottaquechee River Planning Commission. We lean on them heavily for a lot of legal advice as well. Very much recommend you either lean on yours or reach out to us. Just starting on the subject matter experts and NGOs. I'm sorry, I'm an engineer by trades, trying to smooth out the curves, and I'm realizing 3-letter acronyms might be one of those. So again, UNH Carbon Clinic, Dartmouth Energy Justice Clinic. We lean on and have leaned on both before for public engagement and just informational resource perspective. Vermont Law and Graduate School Energy Clinic. They've supported us with figuring out exactly how we should treat solar permitting in our towns. What agency do we have? What process should the select board follow? All of those are really fresh conversations that legislation proposed for the next legislative session may be tweaking. And we want to stay kind of on top of all of that. Next up is window dressers and Vermont Works for Women. If you're not working with window dressers yet, we put together 280 builds this past cycle, and I think close to 200 last year. And window dressers, that again, hitting on the whole heating and affordability aspect. We don't want to just be working with homeowners. We are also aware that energy burden is high with renters, especially with the housing stock that we have. And these window dressers, they save $27 per window dresser per year. And especially in some of our inefficient home stock, just that makes a significant impact. And it's inclusive to renters as well, who are renting for longer periods of time. Vermont Works for Women. We had a program available for women and gender expansive individuals that are seeking information on how to get in with the trades. And oftentimes the teaching environments associated with that specific profession isn't always accessible or isn't always safe. And Vermont Works for Women, we've supported them. I believe their first program was put on in Hartford, and we would love to continue working with them and hosting. This is actually a picture of their graduation a few months ago. I think we had about 25 graduates. And Vermont Works for Women connects those students with unions and job creators, so they don't just go through the free program without a job. There's actually a connection there. So if you're not already working with them or you're not aware of them, please highly encourage you to reach out. And then just the last round, I know you can't quite see these two, my little head's in the way. And again, this is not a complete list of NGOs, but or organizations, but Clean Cities Coalition, Vital Communities, VECAN, obviously. And then the Vermont Community Geothermal Alliance is someone that we've connected with recently on kind of what comes next. And again, transportation, heating, but getting outside of just municipal operations, we have a very clear need to address the clean heat standard and monitor and continue to make affordable heating bills for the foreseeable future, especially as New England's grid blend becomes increasingly sensitive to global constraints like the war in Ukraine. Last year in particular was particularly troublesome. for our heating capacity. And I know my screen kind of eats into the slide a little bit here, but what's currently on our desk is kind of a slow burn exercise, is figuring out how we might be able to get a thermal energy network installed in the downtown White River Junction area, working with landowners, figuring out the number of tenants we might anticipate. How do we make sure that if this goes in, whether privately by the landowner, privately by the landlord, or maybe exploring a public-private partnership where the town can step in and connect multiple buildings and different needs with a larger project. And then that's, again, where we're very privileged to have town staff and town commission department able to lean in and support here, but also leaning on other towns and organizations. I saw Debbie New in this mix as well. Thank you in advance. We've been leaning on Debbie heavily for this. And then kind of going back in the slide deck, transportation heating, right? Landscaping equipment, very low hanging fruit for electrification. Similar with police cars and ambulances, we're trying to integrate idle mitigation where if the vehicle stops and the engine turns off or idles, it consumes less gas. I'm very acutely aware that there is no EV certified vehicle that police departments have approved for use. That's something that we're hoping on exploring, maybe just one or two out of an entire fleet. And then kind of going back to the heating and weatherization components, insulation, ventilation, heat pumps for, again, municipally owned equipment, and then working to connect community members, renters, homeowners with resources if they do want to pursue a solar subscription with your community solar project, or need assistance with grants or funding for weatherization opportunities. We've been collaborating through an Energize Upper Valley program with vital communities, very similar to, I know, LEAP and many other town organizations do something similar on a biannual or annual basis. Just trying to create a space that is open to everyone, regardless of what you're looking for, maybe even has childcare available so that we can watch your child while you go around and learn about how to take care of your family from an infrastructure perspective. I would happily jump into any of these topics on the next the Q&A, but I might defer over to Anna. How am I doing on time?
We have hit the end of your time. If you're ready to stop, if you have any final sentence you want to say to everybody.
Just a thank you again for all the people at the town of Hartford and the Energy Commission and our neighboring communities that continue to make this a fun and inclusive initiative that matters. I think I heard at the VECAN conference in June that this is the most important work we will ever do, and just want to remind and emphasize that I truly believe that, and I think we all do. But Anne, I'll defer over to you for the next speaker. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Jesse. I know there's a lot there, a lot of complexity, a lot of projects, and we'll get into that soon. So next, I am going to introduce our third presenter, Ginevra, who is the Director of Sustainable Woodstock, an organization just 10-15 miles away from Hartford and Jesse's organizing, but I would say has its own completely sort of distinct organizing ecosystem, resources to draw on, and priorities. I am consistently impressed by Ginevra's commitment to inclusion and equity in their work and watching how that plays out in different projects that Sustainable Woodstock takes on. I hope you'll share my interest in not just what Sustainable Woodstock is doing, but in how they do their work so that it benefits and reaches all members of the Woodstock community, broader Woodstock community, because I know you work with all your neighboring towns too. How about
Great. Thanks, Anna. So fun to see folks I know on here. I hope you all don't already know this info. Maybe I can show you something new in what we're doing here. Let me just Slideshow. Okay. Are you hearing me and seeing me?
Yes, and yes.
Yes. Okay. My name's Ginevra, like Anna said. Thanks, Anna. I'm the Executive Director at Sustainable Woodstock. Thanks so much for having me to VECAN. I think it's great to have the three of us presenting back to back because we are quite different models in how we do this energy work. So Sustainable Woodstock, differently from Jesse or Jim, is a nonprofit. We're a 501c3. We were founded in 2009. We have two full-time folks, myself and our lovely program coordinator, Heather. And we have a part-time person for community garden work in the growing season. We have a group. It's called SWEAT. I did not make the acronym. I emphasize that every time. And it's our Energy Action and Transportation Group. So that group is run through Sustainable Woodstock and acts as the town's energy committee in an informal capacity. We are not officially through the town as an energy committee. Woodstock has no formal energy committee because of that arrangement, actually. It predates, I think, when energy committees were becoming a really big deal, and the town just kind of kept the arrangement going. So it is a different structure. And unlike the traditional energy committee, we don't have the requirements of, posting public minutes or things like that. So just different benefits and negatives to it. And our funding comes from the sources I've listed here in that pie chart. The biggest ones are foundations and grants and individual giving with some program income from the programs we do. So another thing I want to emphasize is the IREC position, Intermunicipal Regional Energy Coordinator. I saw two other IREC towns on here. I think I saw David and Linda. So we have an IREC. It's run through our regional planning commission, TRORC. And this position is the energy coordinator for Woodstock and then some other towns I've listed at the bottom there. So we all share an energy coordinator. I just wanted to emphasize this model. If you are a smaller town and it's not very likely that your town's going to fund an entire energy coordinator position just for your town, this has been really successful for us to get access to a qualified person to kind of do energy coordinator work without paying a full salary. We pay a portion of it along with these other towns. And we are the representative in Woodstock. Sustainable Woodstock is for the IREC role. So this is just some of those accomplishments. We've done a lot of work in Woodstock recently on municipal buildings with an energy investment company. And that's going to reduce our emissions by around 13% annually, our municipal emissions. We got an electric school bus grant for 4 buses, 3 of which will be going to our school district through the EPA's grant program. We've created a regional climate action plan, and the IREC right now is managing the MERP grant process for Woodstock. If you don't know what that is, I'd Google it to get involved in your town. It's kind of a big multi-step process for grants, and it would be difficult to manage it if it was me doing that. So a lot of this work would be, it's really been vital to have someone else working with the town as an energy coordinator. Oops, there we go. As Jesse mentioned, we do window dressers in Woodstock for our town and the surrounding towns. This has been our 2nd year doing it. Hello, window dressers people, I saw you on here. Woodstock's build is a bit different and has been a bit different for the past 2 years in that all of our inserts are provided free of charge to local low-income community members. Whereas I think a lot of towns are usually doing like 25 to 30% free of charge to low-income folks. And this goes along with, did I miss a slide? That's what I was going to say. This goes along with our goal of, achieving a just climate transition with centering those who are most affected by climate change. So we do a lot of work focusing on low-income populations, including our energy grants. We've raised almost $100,000 that we're administering to low-income households as small grants that help them get all the way on projects like weatherization, heat pumps, installing efficient wood stoves or pellet stoves. We've given 18 grants so far, or energy audits as well, I should mention. So that's been really helpful, along with incentives to get folks down to low or no cost projects. And then really kind of really strongly tied to this work is kind of grassroots level work that is addressing immediate need in those communities. We work really closely with Riverside Mobile Home Park in Woodstock. It's our only mobile home park. Got flooded this past summer. And this is a picture of some volunteers removing flood debris and flooded skirting, which is the portion that is going between the mobile home there and the base or the earth. That's what covers it, is skirting. So we raised, since the summer, we did a lot of cleanup at the park, and then we raised about $70,000 to replace the skirting that was existing on those homes with insulated skirting. So usually it's not insulated. It's a huge energy opportunity to, basically increase equity by making weatherization better for these homes and then reducing energy costs. So that was a really exciting project. Our funders are there. We're just actually finishing it now. I'm really happy. I just sent out the last check. Also tied into this work is food security. We view sustenance as the root of sustainability. So we've got 2 community gardens. We grow over 100 pounds of produce every year in those gardens and deliver that to the local food shelf in Woodstock, as well as the Haven. Our community garden coordinator mostly manages that. We also have plots in the garden for other individuals and organizations. We've had Zach's Place, Woodstock Terrace there, and those plots are at sliding scale. And we do give away seeds and seedlings every spring to people who otherwise would not be able to afford to garden. And they're welcome to grow at our community gardens if they wish. We give away 75 kits every spring, and so far we've enabled some 600 people to access growing food for free. So I'm excited to do that again this spring. That's our board chair and his daughter. It's really cute. And we do a lot of education. So those of you who are maybe further afield in Vermont and aren't really in the Upper Valley might be aware of us this way. We do monthly green drinks. We're in our 8th year. So these are just educational events, either in person or virtual, on a huge range of sustainability topics. These were some in-person ones we did this past summer as our part of our Gardening for Nature series. And we're in our 5th year of climate change and sustainability film series. That's co-hosted with Pentangle Arts. They're a great partner. He used to be more in person, but lately we've been doing a lot of virtual film screenings that have got us a really excitingly diverse audience. So attendance is probably over 7,500 now, given the most recent few months of film screenings. And this is a sneak peek at next year. This isn't out yet, but really excited to keep that going. And lastly with education, over 12 years of our weekly columns in the Vermont Standard, our local newspaper. I write them, Heather writes them, board members, local activists, experts. In fact, if you'd like to write one, email me, because I like to get new topics that people have kind of special interest in the paper for folks to read. And I just wanted to mention some local action initiatives we're really involved in right now. We've got a board member who's on the serving on the my own thing's in the way, the sustainability committee with the new Woodstock Union High School that is being designed to be net zero. So we've done a lot of advocacy with local youth group, Change the World Kids, to get that school where it needs to be to actually be net zero. We have the 2nd worst high school building in the state of Vermont in Woodstock. So it's really time to get a new one. And we've done a lot of electric lawn care advocacy through our energy group in the past few years. We received a grant recently to publish electric lawn care pamphlets and send mailings and make materials widely available. We've also brought the Upper Valley's only electric lawn care provider, contractor really, to Woodstock. So he came last summer, and that's with Rooted Gardens, Matt. So they're going to be coming back this summer and doing some businesses and local properties. And we've hosted 2 electric lawn care demos and some green drinks, and hoping to do more in the coming warm season. Okay, this is the last one, our annual recycling day. We collect electronics, e-waste, and we shred sensitive documents, paper, every year at the Woodstock High School. It's a fun event. takes some planning, but not a crazy amount. And it's just like a great way to get community involvement. So that's it. I buzzed through a lot of what we're doing. I'm happy to talk about any aspect of it, as well as the structure of our organization, and how, we're fundraising and how we work with other groups in town and outside of town. I mean, there's a lot to discuss. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ginevra, and thank you, Jim, Jesse, and Ginevra, for sharing your time and expertise with us. I believe we are now going to move into breakout rooms, which Magali is going to facilitate technically. So you should have a pop-up, and you should be able to see 3 different rooms, and you can hit join on the room that you want to join, and then I will be there for about 23 minutes, and we'll all come back together at 1:20 p.m. For a little debrief and goodbye and close to the week. So I see some of you are going. Go ahead. And Magali will be here in the main room to help you navigate any technical issues. I'm going to jump into a room with Jim, and I'll see y'all back in a few minutes.
I'm not getting the pop-up for some reason, Magali.
Yeah, I don't have one either. Jim Stiles here.
I know.
Interesting. I'll work on that.
It's on the bottom where you see next to reactions, Richard. This is Cheryl.
You click breakout rooms yourself down there, and then you can join whichever room you'd like.
Oh, I see it now.
If
So
you have
I clicked
a very
that
busy
and got nothing.
bar, sometimes you have to click on the 3 dots at the far right of the toolbar where it says more. And then once you click more, then you can see a breakout rooms list. Is that working for folks?
I'm not getting a breakout room option. I'm just seeing all of the participants, but I can't find how to get to the room.
On your bottom toolbar, Erica, do you see like reactions, apps, blah, blah, blah? And then on the farther right, is there a breakout room option? Or more?
Yeah, I see. But when I pop up that, usually it has like the rooms, but instead I see the full list of participants and but I don't see.
In mine,
okay, now I can. Now I can.
Toggle rooms participants. Got it? Okay.
Anna, I had that to join breakout rooms. I clicked on it and I get nothing.
And it disappeared. Okay.
It disappeared and I have no option to join one or the other.
And are you able
Sarah,
to
sorry,
I
can assign you to a room, Sarah, if you tell me which one you're interested in going to.
I hadn't decided yet. I'm sorry.
No, no worries.
The first speaker, Brandon.
Brandon, all right. All right, have fun in there. Chris, is there a room you're interested in going to? I'd be happy to assign you there. Oh, you're muted.
I can see him okay.
Okay.
Just haven't decided.
No worries.
Sounds like that might be an indication that we are. We were going, let's see, we have 9 minutes. I was going to ask myself and my colleagues to report out briefly on what people talked about in the breakout rooms. I set up this system and I am overwhelmed at trying to quickly communicate to you what was spoken about in our room. So I'm going to do my best, but understanding that we are just touching on a lot of ideas that I know a lot of y'all would go a lot deeper on. So some of the things that came out of our Brandon Energy Committee Q&A with Jim were successful strategies is to be persistently collaborative with whatever the select board has to offer you. Even if maybe they're not going in the full direction or committing to something as much as you want, basically working with what you're given. And a strategic friendliness with key people in town. I think we know that there are influencers, so to speak, in all of our small towns, and building good relationships with those people can go a long way, is what I heard. I also noticed that Jim, refers to the Brandon Energy Committee volunteers, as well as sort of the subcommittee volunteers, as well as anybody who wants to just show up to a meeting as the Brandon Energy community. So really not letting the committee, non-committee divide, or trying his best to not let open meeting laws become sort of a divider, splitting up the energy and the enthusiasm of people who would otherwise be coming together. The 30-minute educational piece before their 1-hour meeting has been a really successful way to not add another meeting to people's months, but to add some capacity for learning some of the technical specificities, and to steal as much information as you possibly can and lean on your regional planning commissions. I think that is my best case summary. Somebody from one of the other breakout rooms able to do
Sure,
it?
I'll go. I was in with the Hartford Energy Commission and Jesse, as well as Dana, and a group of folks. And one of the things that we were talking about was there was some questions around how has Hartford, worked on that data collection of carbon emissions. And Dana had mentioned that there was a tool that they used. It was through UNH Climate Clinic, has a tool that universities often use, and they had participated in a 6-month cohort with a bunch of other businesses and municipalities and in the region, and kind of learned around that tool and have used that, and collected even just like invoices from the town on electric invoices and whatnot. And so they, through that exercise, were able to kind of find some really interesting things that they were able to identify that actually there was a lot of emissions from heat pump leaks, and also is surprised that now it seems more commonly understood, but like that the wastewater treatment facility happens to be a huge emitter as well. So any towns that have those, trying to work with a wastewater treatment plant. We talked about the fact that they were looking for exploring a heat pump for the wastewater heat extraction. So Debbie New happened to be in our group as well. And so talking about heat capture, that's not just like geothermal heat capture, but also heat that is vented out and just lost that could be captured through other means. And we talked a little bit about grant writing. There had been a question in the overall chat about like access to grant writing, because I know that Jesse mentioned that there is no grant writer at the Hartford one. And so Joey from VECAN was there and just mentioned that I think this is important for everyone to know, that the EPA, there's an EPA Technical Assistance Support Center that's going to come online for Region 1, which covers Vermont, and they're intending to help underserved communities, including with grant writing. So if there are communities, I know very few towns have a grant writer, so that will be a resource that in the future you can all tap. But generally, we just talked about also volunteer burnout and ways to just make sure to check in with volunteers that have a lot on their plate and actually give people grace to step away when they need to, so they can rejuvenate and come back. And then just leaning heavily on collaboration to expand that volunteer pool, again, kind of working with other towns and other institutions, and just particularly if you have young folks, I mean, they happen to be well positioned with university students, but climate action speaks a lot to a lot of the younger generation as well, and just some excitement around working together on projects. And if you can time those sort of in a semester, like if there's a research project that somebody that's working at a climate clinic can tap into, if you can time them and make them accessible in that way to students, that's a good avenue for approaching that.
I can be quick and just round out the third group. Learned a lot about sustainable woodstock's work, which was great. We touched on kind of 5 of the main areas of the group's work. We first talked about the IREC, the Intermunicipal Regional Energy Coordinator. Is that the right? If that's not right, that's close. Okay, great. And how the position is structured and how the person's time gets split and the funding structure of that. People were really interested. We spent a good chunk of time talking about electric buses and some interesting kind of needs for alignment between who's eligible, when are they eligible, what is the funding that's available, who has capacity to apply for the funding, and then in terms of the actual fleet, who owns it, and navigating that piece. Talked a bit about community gardens and the community garden coordinator, how they staff it, kind of differences between some personal plots, some plots growing for the food shelf, and briefly touched on kind of the land access piece of that. And then had some conversation about electric lawn care, both in terms of how high emissions are from non-electric lawn care, the potential in electrifying, how competitive costs are. And then a few people mentioned the possibility of doing more exhibits in their own towns to show people kind of how they work and what's available. And then just the very end started to talk a bit about mobile home parks and some of the different weatherization efforts, some of the challenges of finding folks to actually in the community to do that labor. And then just the very, very end, the last thing was a brief kind of recognition of a more larger scale organized need for helping to move entire communities out of floodplains so that they are not continuously in extreme weather zones.
Thank you so much, Alana and Erica, for taking on facilitation duties for us. And Dan, I told you I'd give you 3 minutes at the end. It looks like we have about 1 to work with. Dan from VNRC is going to end us off. So I'll just say thank you again. And we will follow up with these resources and saved chats. And any of y'all can reach out to me at any time. Dan?
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone for coming to the 16th annual VECAN conference. We had 3 great days of webinars. We had a funding and opportunities webinar on Wednesday with some folks from the administration, the state government, really showing some programs that are available. We heard directly from state legislators that are on the forefront of shaping our energy and environmental policy in a legislative roundtable. And of course, we had our great engaging conversation where we got to learn from each other today. If you missed one of the webinars, they are all available on the VECAN website. We're also going to be sending out a follow-up email this afternoon with all of the recordings of all of the webinars. Those include any of the presentation slides for all of the webinars as well, which would be available. Make sure you look out for more from VECAN in 2024. We're going to be starting a winter series of webinars, including our first one that's going to be about equity and environmental justice. That's going to include Carla Ramundi from the Agency of Natural Resources, Environmental Justice and Civil Rights Program, Sophie Veltrop from the Vermont Climate Action Office's Community Engagement Communications Coordinator, and Alana Mahali, who is the Vice President of Conservation Law Foundation. So we have a lot more coming up in the coming days, and we also have some policy webinars that I dropped at least one of them into the chat. So there's so much more coming from VNRC and VECAN. So please stay tuned, and if you're not signed up for the VECAN newsletter, please do that because you'll learn about all the opportunities there. Thanks all for coming.
Thanks again, everybody. Thanks, Jim, Jesse, Ginevra, and have a great Friday and have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.